Hiya. Okay, so this is a complicated subject, actually, altered scales. I mean, I just wanted to touch on a couple of things which aren't discussed very often. So, first of all, I want to talk about the blues, and secondly, I want to talk about the minor key harmony, a straight minor key harmony, and then I want to talk about a little bit about the difference between that and the diminished and altered scales and whole tone scales. So, first of all, I just want to take the altered chords. I mean, if you this video is probably not going to make much sense to you if you don't know what altered scales are, diminished scales, altered dominance, and so on and so forth. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about specific use of altered dominance and where they sound good and where they don't sound good. Okay, so David Liebman makes a strong case in his book Chromatic Approach to Jazz Harmony that the altered chords originally really come from the use of blue notes over dominant sevenths, and I find that kind of convincing. So, for example, if I have a G7 C major chord progression, and melodically I do something very, very common. I play flat 3, which is a blue note of the key, so E flat in this case going up to E, and I get that, and that's something you hear a lot in Duke Ellington. Now, there are other ways of harmonising this. One way would be to go C diminished, C major, and hear that as well, but that's kind of outside the scope of this, so I'm really talking about dominance, right? Another one which is nice is going in from a B7 to a C major, but let's talk about this one. So this is obviously a 7, dominant 7th chord with a raised 5th. You might even hear that with the natural 13th as well. And this opens the portal to the whole tone scale. And you can hear that that's kind of not... It's kind of got a vintagey kind of sound to it. It doesn't sound modern particularly. Okay? So, I mean, musicians such as Thelonious Monk, Duke Ellington, and Bud Powell were heavy users of the whole tone scale. You can hear a lot of whole tone stuff in their work. So the kind of, for me, the black sheep of the kind of scale world is something which is so simple it often gets passed over without notice, and that's the harmonic minor. So, for example, if I was going, 2-5 in the key of C, so I'm basically using secondary dominant into D minor. This is something which tended to happen more in the bebop era. So, in the swing era, if you've got an A7 in the key of C, you're going to play probably a B in that chord. So, for example, if I play the line, that sounds kind of swingy. If I play that sounds a bit more beboppy, so I've got that kind of line going on, which is... Now, where does this come from, this flat 9? Well, really it's a tonicization, right? So if I move to the relative minor of C, which is A minor, that F is diatonic. So what I'm saying is that swing era harmony was very diatonic, and any extensions you see tend to be, just coming out of the melody, which is usually diatonic, right? Could be depending on where the harmony's at. So if you look at it from the point of view of chord plus melody rather than just building everything on a chord, then I think you'll probably be closer to it. So what I'm saying is that you would have heard these sounds in that context, in the context of going from C major to A minor in the swing era. But to go from A7 flat 9 to D minor in the key of C, which is to go 6-2, is kind of quite Charlie Parker. Now, of course, you can express that change simply as being a B flat diminished going to D minor, and that works great. I mean, this is so, and then you can do the same thing going from G7 to C, right? So I'm using the diminished each time. So in terms of the composite harmony, that's A7 flat 9, G7 flat 9. That's a fairly well-known jazz substitution that gives some of that bebop kind of sound. Now, what I'm saying is what parents those diminished chords, and most textbooks that I've looked at would talk about the diminished scale. But I would say, you know, having studied it from the point of view of Barry Harris and so on and so forth, I would say this is not in fact the case. The most common used scale for this particular situation is derived from the harmonic minor, in this case D harmonic minor. So it's this. So do you hear things like that? So just going, stepping down, stepping down a harmonic minor all the way, D harmonic minor, and then resolving to the D minor triad in some way. And of course, if you put this over the A7, you get this kind of what I call a minor dominant scale, or a Spanish Phrygian scale, some people might call it, or a, you know, Phrygian dominant 7 flat 9 flat 13. There's different names for it. Okay, it's a good scale. Gets used a lot. Melodically, it has a slight problem, which is that if I go, let's say I start from the C sharp and I go up, that sounds a bit non-stylistic, and in general in Western music you tend to avoid the leap of the augmented second unless you're really trying to pastiche some kind of Middle Eastern music or something. So what we do is we flatten that note, we flatten the C sharp to a C. And we see this kind of pattern a lot. It's a good 2-5-1 lick. So what I'm doing is using that flat 7 as a lower neighbour into C sharp, C, down to D. So it's kind of, that scale becomes an amalgamation of D minor, D natural minor, and D harmonic minor. Now also leads to something quite interesting that I call the Bebop Tetrachord, right? This is a really important part of bebop language. If you listen to a lot of bebop lines, you'll find, well, I'll give you an example from Hot House. Conveniently, that's in the key of C. So that's a bit more interesting. So if I transpose it to the key of A, you'll see we're using a C sharp and a C, and the B flat and the A coming down together. So this is like 7, flat 7, flat 6, 5. And you find this tetrachord all over the place. Either with, or going into major keys. And this is kind of a sort of very important sound, which I feel people kind of often relate this to the altered scale or to the half-whole scale or something. But actually, it just falls out of that scale, which is, you know, the minor with the flat 7th and the normal 7th. And the reason why I tend to view it that way is that if we put a sharp, you know, if we put a flat 5 or a sharp 11, which is a note that comes out of both the diminished scale and also the altered scale, as we go, it's, now I'm going to add the alteration. Oof. I mean, it's a cool sound, but it doesn't sound normal, not like this. That's more conventional for bebop, certainly. So, so I would say that sharp 5, or flat 5, or sharp 11th, or whatever you want to call it, is kind of a strange sound in that context. And because of that, I tend to avoid that particular scale group, diminished and altered, over that chord. Now I'm a passionate sort of advocate for this minor kind of harmony, just because it kind of represents what I hear so much on bebop records, and people often go on about altered scales and stuff. But the thing is altered scales are cool, but they're a different sound, and this is often another feature of this scale, the harmonic natural minor. I call it reg minor for reasons that are too long to explain. One aspect of this scale is that actually, while you've got, you know, this lovely chord here, which is a B flat major 7th as part of the scale, you can also, if you change that D to a C sharp, misspell a B flat minor chord. And this B flat minor chord will have you can also add to that a major 7th, and because if you're using the 8th note scale, you can add the C in there as well to give you the natural 9th. Now you can hear that we are moving in a sort of altered scale direction, but this is the scale that you will hear on the majority of bebop influenced players, and I would say that flat 5, this thing here, it's kind of a big deal. That gives it the altered sound. So, but if you can hear that sound in combination with this, then you definitely got the altered scale, right? So the altered scale obviously kind of combines this tetrachord with aspects of the whole tone scale. So what I'm saying is that there's kind of let's play through all the main sort of. Oh, here's another one. A few different varieties of altered chord there. I'm moving diminished, altered, tritone substitute, mixed Lydian, and so on. So I mean, but they've all got. So really what I'm saying is that these scales can kind of slide into each other, but the sort of standard, the absolute bog standard scale that everybody seems to use most of the time is just minor. It's not altered. So it's just that D harmonic minor with the added C, or harmonic minor with an added flat 7. That's kind of a point I make elsewhere that I've made before. So I just also want to talk about the tritone sub as well, because that's an interesting one. If I, you know, I mean, if I do tritone sub on that A7, it sounds a bit wrong. I'm not wrong, exactly. It sounds cool, but it sounds a bit more out. And it also sounds more out than this, which is using a D flat 7. So it's like knowing where your tensions are and how far you can push it. If I start playing, you know, those kind of sounds on the 6th chord, on the A7, then that will give a certain effect, which may or may not be the one you want, depending on what you're going for. You know, what you hear, of course. And it's all about knowing and hearing the difference. Like, altered dominants are not as simple as, you know, you might think when you're sort of just getting it together and you think, oh, it's an altered dominant, so I'll play an altered scale over the top. It's kind of more context dependent than that. But the minor sound, the harmonic minor with the added flat 7th, always works, and it always sounds bebop. Now, what was I going to say? Yeah, I don't want to dig too much into the altered scale, the diminished scale. I'd say that the diminished scale is emergent from the minor harmony, because if you just put a... Sorry, it's the wrong one. Just put a lower neighbour tone on a diminished, each note, you get, of course, the diminished scale, the half-whole diminished scale in this case. And that is... of chromatics, you start to steer closer to scales. The tritone substitute one is interesting because if I just go back to C for now, if I go D minor, D flat 7 for the 13th and the 9th, obviously if I put that with the bass note, you get a lovely altered dominant, don't you? And you can relate that to the altered scale, G altered scale in this case, that's great. But here's the thing, this scale, which I'm going to play, which is D flat dominant, is actually also got an F sharp in it, and this is wrong according to the theory books. But to me, it sounds okay if you resolve it. So that's the whole point of this particular use of this scale, is that if I play, you have a lower neighbour, and this reminds me of Night in Tunisia, where if I go, that note is actually in there, in that line. So there's a slippery slope between these different scales, and it's not like the altered scale is necessarily always the one that you can see, especially in earlier music. Obviously, now the music has been affected by the teaching methods of the time, and most people, I think, learn the altered scale when they're at college. But I'm just saying that, you know, there's a few little things. I mean, like, one of the lovely things about this is that you can start to, use these kind of sounds. So if I do that, you know, to give you an idea. So let's try that again. That wasn't very clear. I'm going to go back over it, and we're just going to do the B major triad over that particular chord, because that is a flat 7 substitute of D flat Mixolydian, right? So I can use a B major going to B, C major 7th, right? Again. Now, so obviously that kind of doesn't really work as a sort of harmonic note, but it does set up a tension. And we hear these major 7th sounds over dominant sounds a lot in bebop. So my suggestion is that actually the altered scale wasn't really in existence in bebop, and to analyse bop using the altered scale is you know, an anachronism. It can work because there's obviously a lot of similarities between the tritone and the minor key dominant thing that I've shown you, but the altered scale itself, you know, is kind of an amalgamation of different practices, and the fact that they put the G in there to avoid that kind of a sound, you know, is a recent thing. It's a bit like putting the sharp 11th on your dominant chords, you know. But I mean, again, you know, this is the whole sort of area where you just have to use your ears. The scales are there, and they are existing in the music, but you have to, I think, listen to lots of music and work out how they're all used. Anyway, it's a rather long video, but I hope you found that of interest. I think, you know, any jazz musician's got to spend some time studying dominant chord sounds, because there's a lot to explore. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.